Hi everyone, it's B. Today's video is a part 2 to my very first Women of Survival Horror video I made about Ashley Graham from the original Resident Evil 4, so if you have not seen that one, you should totally go watch it. But if you haven't or don't feel like it, don't worry about it because I'm going to be covering a lot of the same points that I made in that video in this part, and mostly just discussing the differences between Ashley's character in the original versus her character in the remake, what they changed, what they didn't change, and how I feel about it. Also, before we get started, I just wanted to preface this whole entire video with the fact that everything I'm about to say is just my own personal opinion. I know that not everyone is going to agree with me and that my opinions about this game in particular are pretty strong, and I just wanted to say that before I start talking because in case you haven't seen any of my videos before or you don't know me, Resident Evil 4 has been my favorite game since it came out in 2005, so some of my opinions about it are kind of nitpicky and might not be the most popular opinions, and it's okay if you don't agree with them. I get it, I just don't want to argue about it in the comments. So, with that said, now would be a super good time to maybe go grab a snack or some coffee, and let's get started. So, it shouldn't be news to anyone at this point that recently the Resident Evil 4 remake came out, and as is with any remake, it's never just a one-to-one recreation with better graphics. There's always a pretty great deal of things that are changed, and Ashley is one of those things. And I think much of what was changed about Ashley's character for the remake has to do with how much the social climate has changed between 2005 when the original came out and now. I've mentioned in many of my previous videos, since I usually cover media of all kinds from the 90s and 2000s, that a lot of what used to be considered totally fine and acceptable then is completely unacceptable now, as people are generally more aware of political and societal issues, like the absolutely awful treatment of women in media. When it comes to Ashley from Resident Evil 4, one of the major problems and criticisms of how her character was treated in the original was that she was blatantly over-sexualized to a pretty high degree. This over-sexualization is something that I talked about at length in the part 1 I made on Ashley, but real quick, I'm just going to go over some of the more egregious examples of this. The first I'd like to cover happens most often during the part of the game where you play as Ashley in the castle. During this section, Ashley crawls repeatedly on all fours under tables to move from area to area and avoid enemies. While she crawls, the camera zooms in on her butt, or if the camera is facing the other way, it zooms in on her chest. While she dodges attacks from knights, she falls to the ground, and the camera is angled in a way that allows the player to see straight up her skirt. And you could try to make the point here that the abundance of upskirt shots aren't intentional, but I hate to tell you this. They absolutely are intentional. It's by design. In the original Resident Evil, in case you haven't played it or it's just been a really long time for you, Ashley cannot climb down ladders or jump down from ledges on her own. She always needs to be caught and cradled by Leon every single time. This means that she will wait at the top of a ledge for the player to walk over and press the button that will trigger her to jump down and be caught. While she's standing on these ledges, players can look directly up her skirt, and Ashley will actually respond to this by accusing Leon of being a pervert or asking him what he's looking at while trying to cover herself up.
Hey, what are you looking at? Oh, you pervert!
In the remake, none of these problems exist anymore, as not only can Ashley climb up and down ladders on her own, she can jump down from most ledges without help. She no longer crawls on all fours, and even in her outfit that most closely resembles her outfit in the original, she's now wearing shorts rather than a skirt as well as tights. So this form of sexualization is completely cut out. The original also includes a joke that was actually the very first thing that came to mind when I heard that there was going to be a remake. The ballistics joke. I was really wondering if they were going to keep this one in, even though I seriously doubted it. But, in case you're unaware, in the original Resident Evil 4, in the cutscene before the cabin section begins, Luis meets Ashley for the first time and makes a comment about her, assets.
Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics, too.
How rude! And I don't believe there's any relevance with my figure and my standing. Who are you?
Oh, excuse me, Your Highness. Perhaps the young lady might want to introduce herself first before asking someone his name.
Her name's Ashley Graham, the president's daughter.
Hey, I see you found your missing senorita.
Senorita has a name and it's Ashley.
You are?
So, obviously this joke would definitely not fly in today's world, and as a result, it was cut. But that's not actually the only joke that's made in the original Resident Evil 4 about Ashley's figure. The second joke is made by Leon after him and Ashley jump into a giant pile of garbage to cushion their landing, and he remarks that he knew she would be fine if she landed on her butt. You know, like implying that she has a big butt. This joke and entire scene were also cut from the remake. No big surprise here.
Ugh, it stinks.
Sure does.
No way, Leon.
Way.
Are you out of your mind?
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
You...
I think it's pretty obvious that one of Capcom's greatest goals with Ashley was to make sure that the over-sexualization of her character was completely fixed for the remake to avoid offending anyone, especially since people, game developers included, understand that we shouldn't wildly over-sexualize women even if they're just fictional characters, because it sends the message to the players of these games that doing so is completely fine and normal, which it isn't. But, and don't kill me for saying but, I promise I'll explain, I do feel like they kind of took it a little bit too far in the opposite direction. So, one of the very first things that I noticed when the remake was announced and we got to see Ashley's new look for the first time was just how much they changed her outfit from the original. The same general color scheme is there, and without the blazer and scarf, it's pretty similar, but when you really take a look at all of Ashley's costumes in the remake, she is very covered up. Her skirt is now shorts, she has a blazer, tights, a scarf, and her alternate costume, she's also covered up head to toe. In comparison to Ashley's default costume in the original as well as her alternate pop star outfit, you could definitely say her costumes in the remake are pretty conservative. This might seem like a kind of weird thing to point out, but just work with me for a second here. So, you know when you're in high school and you wear a spaghetti strap tank top on a hot day or a skirt that doesn't go past your fingertips and you get dress coded, sent to the office, and reprimanded for wearing an outfit that's too distracting to all the boys in class and all of your male teachers? I think that most girls who have experienced this can agree that it's kind of bullshit to reprimand girls and blame them and their clothes for boys not being able to control themselves, because it places the blame on the girl's body, not on the boys for being distracted. The reason I bring this up is because I think Capcom's attempt to scrub the game from any possible way that they could be accused of over-sexualizing Ashley to the extent that they did in the original Resident Evil 4, they made it so she had to be totally covered up all the time. It was never the outfits that caused the over-sexualization of her character in the original. It was by design that she would be over-sexualized. They purposely made it so we could look up her skirt or down her shirt, and also wrote the lines about her boobs and butt into the game themselves. Even if you gave back both of her original costumes, the major issues of the ballistics joke and the purposeful upskirt shots have already been taken care of, so there was really no need to change the costumes as much as they did. Another step the remake took to change Ashley's character was to address another one of the major complaints people had about her: the fact that she was the quintessential damsel in distress. This is another one of the points that I talked about at length in part 1, but this time we're going to go over what they did to tackle this criticism of her character. First, it's important to know that a damsel in distress is a story trope as old as time, basically, of a woman who has either been kidnapped or put in some general danger that requires a man, who is usually a love interest, to defend her, protect her, and save her. If you Google this term, the very first thing that comes up is a criticism of the trope itself, stating that a damsel in distress implies that a woman needs to be rescued by a man.
Without further ado, the gallant knight presents the Princess Fair.
Then come, Sancho Panza. Let us rescue the Princess Dulcinea.
You can hurt yourself.
Hey, that was my dance.
Sorry, I screwed up. Come to my rescue, Prince Charming.
I'll show you charming, pal.
Come on. I'm in the ballroom past the courtyard. Don't get late to the dance.
as Ashley is completely defenseless in both the original and the remake, needing to be protected, defended, and saved by a man. She was and still is a damsel in distress, and honestly, I could not be happier, and I'm going to tell you why. I stated in my first video about Ashley that I was very worried, as had been done with many other female characters in modern media in order to make them a good female character, that if a remake were ever to come out, they would try to make Ashley a badass. That may sound like a good thing, and many people often complain about how useless Ashley is and wonder why she can't just have a gun and defend herself. But here's the real question. Why are the only good female characters in your mind the kind that behave in a way that would be considered stereotypically masculine? Would Ashley only be a good female character if she had a gun and could suplex ganados just the same as Leon does? I mean, if that were the case and everybody just wanted to play a Resident Evil game where rather than escorting around a defenseless damsel in distress, they still got to have a female companion who could shoot guns and be helpful to them, everybody would love Resident Evil 5, but plenty of people have problems with that game, and Sheva as well, despite the fact that she does everything people wish Ashley could do. The reason I'm happy that they kept Ashley as a damsel in distress in the remake is that something I have always loved about her character ever since I was a little girl is that Ashley is just a normal person. Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield, Sheva Alomar, Rebecca Chambers, and Ada Wong are all awesome, badass female Resident Evil characters, and I love them all too. But the thing is, all of those women are trained agents, and you know what I'm not? A trained agent. If I were kidnapped by a cult, rescued by Leon Kennedy, then escorted through a terrifying village, castle, and industrial district while men were trying to steal me away, I would probably be just as useless as Ashley, if not worse, to be honest. I can't run, I can't jump down from high ledges, I would probably be crying the whole time, I'm terrified of everything, and I would probably slow us down so much that we would die almost immediately. I like that Ashley doesn't have any special skills that would make her more capable of surviving a situation like this. She has no special training, and she's just a 20-year-old girl who seems just generally annoyed that this is happening at all. And that's why I love her character so much. And so when I saw the trailer for the remake that shows Ashley holding a gun, I almost had a heart attack. I was like, oh no, they did exactly what I didn't want them to do. But good news, everyone. Ashley doesn't use a gun or anything. However, she is slightly less useless than before. Ashley's personality in the remake is much more likable, and it feels like they did their best to try to make people hate her less than they did before, which I would say they did a pretty good job of. Ashley isn't as in the way as she used to be before. You don't really have to worry about her as much, as she does a pretty good job keeping up with Leon while he's running, since she can jump down on her own now. Protecting her in the water hall still totally sucks just as much as it did in the original, but, you know, that's the water hall for you. They also went a totally different route with her personality than I thought they were going to. I mentioned in the first video I made that I wish they had leaned a little bit more into the whole spoiled princess sort of vibe that she had going on in the original, because think about it. Ashley is the 20-year-old affluent daughter of the president. It's 2005. Her character is very clearly based on young Britney Spears, who was extremely popular at the time, and still extremely popular to me, love you Britney. And Ashley is very sassy in the original. She stands her ground, she's clearly not stupid, but she has that kind of girly inflection with the way she talks that was popular in the 90s and early 2000s with characters like Elle Woods from Legally Blonde or Cher from Clueless. Kind of like a Valley Girl sort of accent.
How rude! And I don't believe there's any relevance with my figure and my standing. Who are you?
Ew! Get off of me! Ugh, as if.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard?
I was kind of hoping that since this game is supposed to take place in 2005, that they would really lean into the kind of personality that so many other popular blonde girls had in media from the late 90s and early 2000s, like Karen or Regina George from Mean Girls, Cher from Clueless, Sharpay Evans from High School Musical, or even like Paris Hilton or Britney Spears, but alas, that is not what they chose to do. I understand why, though. I realize that even though I personally like these kinds of characters and people, they are generally considered to be kind of annoying, even by early 2000s standards. It seems like in the remake, they really aimed to make Ashley much more likable and agreeable, and really tried to make her as different as possible from how she was in the original. In the remake, she really strives to be as helpful as she can to Leon, despite not having any training that would allow her to do so, and she tries her best to impress Leon with her ability to hold her own and do things by herself, even talking about how she would like to do what he does for a living someday, so maybe they could work together.
You sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Alright, here goes nothing. How are you feeling?
Like $1,000,000.
I thought you were gonna die. Leave it to me, Leon.
You did this.
Yeah. Yeah, I did this. Hey, we're a team, right?
Keep this up, I'll be out of a job.
You know, I was thinking, we work well together, don't we?
I guess so.
Right? Maybe someday I'll become an agent like you. What do you think? We could protect the US from any and all threats.
And I think that this significant change in Leon and Ashley's relationship is, again, partly a result of Capcom's attempt to scrub the game from the complaints people waged against the original. I am extremely sad to report that my favorite line from the end of the game, where Ashley asks Leon if he wants to do some overtime, was cut out and instead replaced with a much more PG version which doesn't have any of the insinuation of a romantic relationship that the original had.
So, after you take me back to my place, how about we do some, overtime?
Sorry.
Somehow I knew you'd say that, but it doesn't hurt to ask, you know?
You know, I could put in a word with my dad. Have you assigned to my detail, if you're interested.
You don't need me. You proved you could handle yourself. Even if you could use a lesson in knife safety.
Actually, there is no insinuation of any romantic relationship between the two in the remake at all. And that is completely intentional, with Leon and Ashley's relationship meant to take the route of a platonic friendship rather than romantic. I think that this may have been done to fit with the more serious and dark tone that the remake has in comparison to the original, and again, to rid the game of any potential to be criticized for making Ashley a fully stereotypical damsel in distress who needs to be rescued by a male love interest, as well as avoiding reinforcing the harmful idea that guys and girls always have to have a romantic relationship and can never just be platonic friends. But I do find it a little bit disappointing that they chose to go this route, mostly because one of the things that I always loved about Resident Evil 4 ever since I was little was that it felt kind of like a romantic comedy survival horror action movie rolled into a really awesome and super fun PS2 game. Without the romantic comedy feeling that the original had, I feel like the remake is trying a little bit too hard to appease everyone and avoid any criticism whatsoever. It feels kind of sterilized, almost. Like they were trying to make everything as PG as possible so that there was no possible way to upset anyone. As a result, it seems to me that Ashley and Leon's relationship in the remake is being interpreted by new players who have never played the original as almost like a big brother and little sister kind of relationship, which kind of just grosses me out, honestly. I would also like to point out that they have given Ashley the teeniest, tiniest little bit of backstory in the remake, which I was honestly very excited about. I'm sure if you know me or have just seen a lot of my videos or something, you'd know that I don't like remakes. I don't like new games, I don't like new things. I'm very much a creature of habit, and honestly, I was so afraid of watching any gameplay of the remake after it came out that I avoided it for almost a full month, because anytime they take a game or movie or something that I like and change any little bit of it, even little things that nobody cares about, I feel like I'm going to explode. My brain and my heart can't handle it. But I was very happy when, after rescuing Ashley from the church in the remake, you come across her phone in the hallway. And what is that phone, you might ask? It is a hot pink Motorola Razr flip phone. When I tell you I was screaming and yelling when I saw this in the game for the first time, I mean it. This is the exact phone I had my whole childhood, and I still have it, actually.
Hello, Moto.
It was my favorite phone I've ever owned, and honestly, it's such an iconic phone from the early 2000s, especially with characters and people similar to the ones I mentioned before, like the stereotypical early 2000s blonde bombshell like, you know, Paris Hilton. So, when I saw that Ashley canonically has one of these phones, I was over the moon. Despite the fact that I don't really like her personality in the remake nearly as much as her personality in the original, the phone was a really great thing to include to tell us a little bit more about her and just remind everyone that even though this is a remake, it's technically supposed to be 2005. With the popularity of Y2K fashion and aesthetics nowadays, even with younger kids who weren't even alive during that time period, I'm honestly surprised that they didn't lean into the fact that it's 2005 more. Also, I know that I literally just said that I wish that they had leaned into the whole 2005 thing more, but this is not what I meant literally at all. Listen, I have a very hard time believing that the president's daughter would just be allowed to walk around looking like this, representing the country, and also going by Ashley Anarchy on MySpace while listening to Fall Out Boy and Paramore in her college dorm. I'm sorry, it's just not believable. I also wanted to add that Ashley's phone has 2 stickers on it for a sorority, Sigma Gamma Phi. It is not surprising to me in the least that Ashley would be the kind of girl who would be in a sorority, so again, I'm honestly wondering why they didn't lean harder into the early 2000s Valley Girl type of personality that she has in the original, especially since they made it canon that she uses a hot pink Motorola Razr and is in a sorority. They could have made her a perfect replica of Elle Woods from Legally Blonde and it would have fit perfectly, but who knows. I'm glad that they succeeded in making people hate her less than they used to, but I just wish that people would have liked her for the way that she was in the original, because by changing her completely, they just kind of proved everyone right about hating her in the first place, which I just don't think is fair, and I never have. The way I look at it, Ashley's always going to be one of my favorite characters of all time, no matter what. I love that she's just a regular girl, and it's not hard to imagine myself in her shoes or to see myself in her. Let me know down in the comments if there are any other changes that you noticed that I may have missed in this video, and as always, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a good day or night or whatever time it is, wherever you are, and I will see you all again next time. Hello, 911. Hi, I'm calling from Sigma Gamma Phi. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a sorority. Yeah, so my sorority sister Ashley Graham has been missing for like a freaking week and we literally can't find her anywhere and it's starting to totally bug me out. So I was wondering if you guys could like, I don't know, look for her or something? Yeah? Okay, that would be totally awesome. Awesome, cool. Alright, thank you, bye-bye, kisses.